For the past 13 summers, the nation's best comics and rising stars have gathered on Nantucket. The Nantucket Comedy Festival is a highlight of the island's summer scene as it benefits the Standup and Learn Foundation for local youngsters and provides a series of hilarious evenings. And now, in these challenging times, in the spirit of the festival, we gather a group of comics to provide some laughs, some diversion, and a dose this evening of the best medicine. Welcome once again. It's Thursday evening in the shadow of a lovely rose-covered
cottage.
Cottage, but I'd go for about, 4 mil? I guess it's about the size of a shoebox in Wisconsin. Welcome to the best medicine in the spirit of the Nantucket Comedy Festival. Good evening. I am Bob Lee, and we have an evolving cast of characters here this evening. Let's say hello to everyone who's going to spend the next bit of time having fun with us. You have seen him multiple times on The Tonight Show, and his special on Amazon Prime is entitled Parentally Challenged. Say good evening to Justin McKinney. Hello, Justin.
Hey, happy to be here. Good to see everybody. Thank you for having me, Bob.
It's great. Your moon is full.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's chilly up here in New Hampshire. It's going to be 44 tomorrow, though.
Wonderful. A seasonal resident of Nantucket, wishing that she could live there year round. You have seen her on The Last Comic Standing and The View and The Today Show, and you can look for her podcast, Funny Over 50. Hello to Jane Condon. Hi, Jane.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me. I love your house. It's a beauty. Wow.
I appreciate that. But, getting up there to water is a bitch, though. To get up there and water all those roses is tough.
Bob Lee said, bitch. I can't believe it. It's unbelievable.
Where were you last week when I was counting the jokes?
The F-bomb,
One by one. It was there only a... Hold on a second, because I know Brian is going to get... If we don't get Brian into this conversation, we know it's going to be like. He is a Nantucket native, and how do we know that? He just put down his pitchfork where he's been trying to keep all the people off island ever since this virus thing came up. They're going to sneak on your... Brian Glowacki. Good to see you, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
It's good to be here. It's good to see anybody, not you specifically, just anyone in general.
And the executive director of the Nantucket Comedy Festival, and this guy's been wearing a mask into 7-Elevens for years. Kevin Flynn.
How I make my money. Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for coming on, everyone. And Bob, thanks for doing this.
It's another fun evening as we're another week into this unusual time. All right. Who's adjusted the best here to lockdown and to our new reality here? Who's been...
Bob, I have a question before we get going today, because I'm a huge fan of yours, and you, Outside the Lines was like one of my favorite shows, and you were great at it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now you're teamed up with Kevin Flynn. So how did that happen?
We Catholics have this thing called penance.
Okay. All right.
And it's when the bishop says you've got to, so yes. And it's
got all these comedians on tonight. It's like outside the business.
I know. It's also supervised release. I had to do it. So.
We work furlough program.
I'm making fun of myself as well.
That's fine. Where's that picture of the two of us together? You got to send it again.
I will send that. I have it. I loved it. It was, yeah. I mean, it took me 4 days to find it, but I love it.
If I can just interject.
No.
One thing about the comedy festival is the comedians, we all know each other. So we see each other all the time, whether in Boston or New York or LA, traveling around, But what I loved about the festival was when everybody comes out there, you're this sports guy, this famous sports guy, Bob. And so comedians, sometimes we don't care about seeing each other. We cared about seeing people outside of our genre. So be like, my comedian buddies would be like, Bob Lee's there, I'm coming.
Oh.
It would say Lewis Black, was there. He wanted to see Bob Lee. And then you got like Jerry Stiller is standing there, and then Chris Matthews. It's like people outside the genre. It's like, we're excited to see each other. I'm sure all you sports guys don't want to see
work. And watch, I've told you this before, watching it in the wings when I MC that thing on SmackDown Night, and watching just the energy and the mutual support. And I understand it may not be that way with everybody in your line of the work, but there is that mutual fascination because everybody figures that everybody, like when you watch the Merv Griffin show, you figured everybody on the sofa knew everybody else, not necessarily.
Right. Well, I would say this, the energy's great backstage, and Jane can attest to this. Jane's been back there. Jane's been a part of the festival a number of times, but the guys if you're backstage with the guys, they're just busting chops the whole time. Brian, you got to move closer to the camera with that.
No, this isn't my good side, Kev. I'm not all pretty like you. I'm trying to hide the shadows.
Social like going deeper and deeper. You got to go to center field to catch that Willie Mays.
We're talking about how fun the green room was, and I was getting depressed.
You gotta face the wall.
Well, I remember green rooms.
But Brian, you'll attest to this. We're in the green room with like Don Gavin and Stephen Wright and Ron White, and you're like, these are guys, amazing. But the energy for ladies' night, women's night is so different. It's a totally different vibe. It's hysterical. I looked around at the women finally one night, and I'm like, ladies, have you ever even been on stage? And they're like, shut up, we're fine.
But I do remember one of the interns kept giving Patty Ross daiquiris. And after the second one, I said, how about if we wait until she performs and then you give her the third daiquiri?
Don't say that to Don Gavin. That will not work. And Patty probably had a couple of daiquiris before the show started. So
pre-gaming. But I do remember from that very first year, Kevin, I think 2007, am I right? We had ladies' night behind the Dreamland Theater, and Stilla and Mayer came. I don't know if you've talked about Jerry Stiller's passing yet on the show, but I actually, in the spirit of sucking up, blew up this wonderful thing that he said to Kevin. Can you read it? This was written by Jerry Stiller to Kevin Flynn, whose wit, intelligence, and artistry rank him with the finest in show business. And, sorry, it's a little hard to read. Oh, with love and admiration, Jerry Stiller. I would so frame this, Kevin. I mean, this is, and he wrote love and two.
No, why do you have that?
Just stole it.
He paid me, but I just
wasn't for that, though.
I just thought it was very touching, and it also conjured up for me the memory of after ladies' night, the guys wanted to perform too, and so we went over to the Rose and Crown, and I remember Al Ducharme getting up and you getting up, and then Jerry Stiller got on stage, and I almost dropped dead because Ann was heckling him from the back, saying, Jerry, you're too old for this. Jerry, those are young people. They don't want to hear from you. Get off the stage, Jerry.
That's a good era.
I'm watching them go back and forth, and they're like, this is just like I used to see on Ed Sullivan. I mean, they were two comedy legends.
In a bar at the Rose and Crown.
It was so moving. It was just so very wonderful. And
Jane, I just have to say, I thought that was written to Kevin. That was written to you?
Oh, no, it was written to Kevin. No, it's definitely written to Kevin.
It was written to Kevin. Okay, all right. My question was right, because that's what I thought.
No, but Jerry was known for being, both of them were very generous, and he actually said something nice to me that night, too. And I know Maureen Langan uses what he said to her. You're like the James Brown of comedy. What did you say to me? He said, you're terrific and people like you right away. It's so funny. These things get burned in our heads, right, Kevin? I mean, I would have memorized every single word if it, how'd you get him to write it on the napkin?
Okay. No, that's it. He gave me a book about, he thought I was like a certain person, an actor. I have the book here at my house, but I think he said, you remind me of this actor and you need to do, it's that play about a rabbit. I forget what it's called. And he said, you need to do this on theater, on the stage. And then he wrote that, he gave me that book and put that in there. So,
of Mice and Men?
Yeah. And I'm going to play Lenny. So he thought I'd be the perfect
Jimmy Stewart movie? Yeah. There's a big rabbit in that, but I don't know.
Harvey. Yeah, Harvey. That's it. There's Bob Lee out of his genre and still boom with the answer. Moving on to Double Jeopardy right there.
I got the movie right.
I think, Bob, did we talk about him last week, Jerry?
No, we did not.
Well,
and he was such a seminal presence around.
They were royalty.
Absolutely, both of them would come to every performance. Seaside Shakespeare, anything at Bennett Hall, anything at the Methodist Church. They came and they supported. And I'd been in a couple of plays years ago where when Jerry Stiller and Ann Mearer were in the audience. Backstage, people were shitting themselves. They were so nervous. And they always came backstage and they gave everyone a hug and they told them how great they were. It's like incredibly supportive. And so the very first year of the comedy festival, we did a roast, which I really called a toast. And Justin, you'll love this story because I call it a toast. I say, hey, everybody, we're going to do a toast to Stiller and Mearer. they're two comedy legends on Nantucket. They're just the greatest, you know. And so the one comic came up and he said, I went through the Jewish section of town of Nantucket, which I call Stilla and Mira's house, so which is very funny. But we had a roast, and I asked Ann and Jerry if they would be in it, and then they said yes. I said it because Peter Farrelly and Bobby Farrelly were going to host it. They're like, we're in. And then I told Bobby and Peter, I go, we got Ann Mira. And so I told them both we had each other, and they did it. And so they go up, and Al Ducharme comes up, and he thinks it's a roast. So he's going to roast Stiller.
I remember this. Oh my God.
With nasty jokes. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know,
oh my
God. How comics are, Brian, you know this too. Like once a comic decides like, okay, you people don't like me, watch this. Now you really not like me. Al just doubled down and just went at it. And then I went up after him. I mean, he bombed. He bombed. And he was making fun of Stiller and Mira and the whole family. And I, you know, on Nantucket, they're, you know, and I walked out and I go, and he was found the next morning floating in the harbor. Who knew?
Well, you know, it's tough with these roasts or toasts because Comedy Central has done something where if you're going to do a roast, it's Comedy Central. It's so over the top, like, right? It's cringeworthy, but that's what's funny about it. And I did one last year for a guy, Greg Kretschmar, who WHEB The Morning Buzz. I don't know if you guys know, he's out of Portsmouth, but he's all over New England. It's a syndicated radio show, but they wanted it to be like a toast. And so it was a light roast. So just like, you know, his family was going to be there. You know what I mean? Right. You don't want to do those, you know, those end up going at, you know what I mean? So,
right.
If you don't know if it's a roast or a toast, you kind of got to know, because as a comic, if you're like, this is a roast, you're thinking you're supposed to go, you know, Comedy Central on it.
Yeah. Go for the throat.
Well, here's my thing. Those old roasts with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, they were hysterical. But they were clean because you had to be clean on television back then. And so I think it was more, they sat down and wrote a clever, crafty piece. It wasn't so gratuitous. It wasn't so over the top. And so you could tell that those guys are probably dropping F-bombs like crazy off stage, but when they were roasting each other, they had to be clean, and it was hysterical. It really was.
But that wasn't water in their glasses, though, on NBC. You watch those shows. Show goes longer and longer, and it gets wild. You can almost see the edit points.
Right.
Like The Last Dance.
Yeah, exactly. That was amazing. You expected a Twitter handle to be, maybe it was Michael Jordan's bourbon glass, you know, this much, that much, this much. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I thought he had hot dogs next to him. I thought he had a whiskey and a hot dog, but it was a cigar in his
cigar holders. You know, the thing was, those
you were just hungry.
Yeah. I was like, ooh, whiskey.
And a hot dog.
What are you guys talking about, Michael Jordan?
The Last Dance?
This is a guy who used to play basketball, Kevin.
Actually,
back in the 90s.
It's a wonderful
I'm trying to help Jane out here.
No, it's a wonderful 10-part documentary my kids have told me to watch.
On 30 for 30, yeah. So
it's amazing.
Where
I'll pop up a few times.
Is it on ESPN or something?
It is. It's streaming on ESPN.com.
I've heard it's wonderful.
It'll be on Netflix shortly. It's internationally. It's on Netflix. And the company just, I saw something today in the Hollywood trades that ESPN had signed a deal to do I'm not kidding, a similar thing with Tom Brady.
Oh, wow. Oh, Carl is here.
Well, now.
Hey, Carl.
Carl Yard.
Here's Carl Yard joining us from New Haven.
Yes, I almost died today.
Hey, Carl.
How you doing?
How's
Welcome aboard.
State Trooper.
What happened, Carl? Tell everybody what happened, because I filled the panel in before we went on air.
Have you guys noticed that, like, now that the roads are kind of cleared, people think it's like the Autobahn?
Yeah.
Like, people just driving crazy. So this guy, he passed a tractor trailer on the right and tried to cut in front of the tractor trailer and get into the lane the tractor trailer was in, but I was already in that lane. So he hit the side of my car. My car went up on like two wheels. I swear to God, I thought I was going to die.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, I can't believe you're even on air right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought he was going to pull over, but he just kept going. So I took off after him. So this happened on I-95 in Bridgeport. So I'm chasing him, and you know what I mean, and he's You know, so we all these back streets in Bridgeports. And then
Who are you, Ethan Hunt?
I got my cell phone out and I'm taking pictures and videos of the cars I'm driving, and it's just crazy. I ended up in a neighborhood. I had no idea where I was, but I got enough pictures and videos. So
get his license plate?
Yeah, I got his license plate, everything. And so I got back on the highway and figured I'll just head home.
You're the first person to crash and then text and drive.
Oh, really? He's
the good news is NBC bought the pilot, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Carl, you call the cops?
Well, man, I don't know. Is that a white thing? Because that's the same thing the police asked me. Why didn't you call 911?
Yeah, right.
Well, how much time do you got?
4 of us here live in Connecticut. We know the answer to that.
But I didn't. I just figured I had a license plate. That's all I needed. So I figured when I get home and I calm down. Plus, I was in Bridgeport. I had no idea where I was, and I wasn't comfortable sitting where I was.
Right.
So when you're hanging from the seatbelt and you're like, I got to get home and be on Kevin Flynn's Zoom show.
Yeah.
Someone
on 2 wheels.
Kevin at the same time, I'm at the police barracks, and the cops he wasn't interrogating, but he asked me all these questions. So why didn't you pull over and call 911? Well, I was trying to get the guy's license plate. So I was kind of chasing him. So 911 wasn't on my mind. I figured once I had the license plate, that's all I need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
You're lucky your car was able to drive after that.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Is your heart still pumping from this?
Just from telling you guys a story and just from thinking about
Wow.
the whole,
I mean, you really didn't have to do this. I mean, you could have pushed it to next week. I think Kevin's got openings.
I already booked Joey Chitwood for next week. So.
I didn't want a video.
Joey Chitwood. That's an old reference, Bob.
How would that look? The token black guy and he doesn't show up. You guys
exactly. Black people are always late.
I gotta represent.
Well, before you jumped on, Carl, I said, leave it to a comedian to crash on his way to a gig when he doesn't have to leave his house. Like, how did that even happen?
So are the cops looking for this guy?
So when I got home, I live in Hamden, so the closest state police is Bethany. So I went there, and he told me, well, they don't deal with that. I need to Troop D in Bridgeport, and he gave me the phone number. He said, you need to go talk to them.
Yeah.
But I'm like, aren't you guys the state police? What, isn't it state police?
Yeah.
Right?
I know. You'd think they have that computer and it would pretty much work everywhere.
So, Carl, at what point, Carl, was that recent video of the Connecticut State Trooper losing his stuff? Have you seen that video?
No.
Oh, this guy pulls a kid over on the Q Bridge in New Haven, and the kid leaves his phone going, and this poor trooper, I won't say poor, I mean, he's stressed that he's just reading this kid totally over the line. Go Google it, Connecticut State Trooper. It's not the finest moment, but because when they said you were dealing with the Connecticut State Police, most of anybody I've ever dealt with has been most professional and highly motivated, but this one particular guy, it's dominating the local news. Yeah.
Oh, recently? Nice.
Oh, in the last several days, yeah.
Oh. And Carl has taught me that the rules are different. He said, white people call 911.
Yeah, that's
Carl and I were coming back from a gig in New Hampshire once. We had worked together, and there was a Mercedes on the front lawn of this house, and it said for sale. And I said, oh man, it was a 240 SL Sport Coupe that I like that car. So I pull over and I start walking up to it, and he goes, what are you doing? I go, I got to go check out this car. He goes, oh my God, no, I'm going to stay right here. I go, come on, check it out. He goes, no. That was my first, one of the first times I kind of he goes like, in New Hampshire, I didn't want to be a black guy walking up to a Mercedes looking at it.
Because I'm thinking, okay, if I sit in the car and the cops pull up, it's going to look suspicious. Like, why am I sitting in the car and this guy, you know what I mean? So I'm like, let me go out and hang with Kevin so it will look like we're together. But I'm like, that's not even going to work either, because, if the cops pull up, they're going to still single me out and go, why are you looking at, you know what I mean? I'm like, just come on.
Kevin would have turned on you in a moment.
Yep. It would have been like, there he is, officer. Get him.
Yeah.
I was shitting bricks that day. And
so Carl is from Barbados, and you know, we've all been there a bunch of times, you know, on the cruise ships, if you're working the cruise ships. And Barbados, I don't know if you even know this, Carl. Yeah. Barbados has the highest literacy rate in the world.
Yes.
Wow.
98.9, which means there's like 2 guys who can't read on the island. And everybody knows who they are.
That's my street alone.
Exactly. Yeah, you're up in New Hampshire.
Yeah. I got to read my neighbor's mail to him sometimes.
Justin, did you ever work with Carl in Boston? Were you guys in the same time period at all?
Yes. I could remember Carl was one of the first guys I met. He was headlining when I started. I can remember we did a gig up in Maine. I think it was Saco, Maine. Do you remember, Carl, that one right over the railroad tracks?
Yeah. Was that a rock theme gig? I think it was.
Oh, yeah. Most of them were back then. Yeah. And it was right over the railroad tracks, and it was I mean, that was one I remember. I'm trying to think of who else was on that show with us, but that one I always remembered. We used to bump into each other back in the day a lot more. I haven't seen you live in a while.
Yeah.
Neither has his wife, so it's good. So Jane,
glad you survived.
Jane hasn't worked those horrible road gigs like the rest of. She does the Greenwich, Fairfield County.
Okay, that is true, but actually, I did. One of my first road gigs was in Scranton, the Clarion Inn with Kevin Downey Jr. And
Kevin Downey Jr. Oh my God!
So right away, it's getting more interesting. I know, but anyway, he had a pink Cadillac, and afterwards, these pharmaceutical people wanted to go out for drinks, and then no, I just go to my room. I'm going to look at email. I'm going to call my husband. And Kevin got me aside and he said, Jane, could you please come? Have you seen my car? I mean, it's 58 Cadillac. What if it breaks down? I need a ride home. And I'm there like, oh, I get it. I'm the ride home. So we followed the pharmaceutical people to this big barn. They had a disco ball. And I thought like drug people would be kind of lame. And I don't even go to bars. So they said, what do you want? And I said, a Shirley Temple, and
you're out of the comedian club right there. Boom.
I know, but I my first place was Treehouse, and they used to just automatically, for my free drink, they would say, "You want a Shirley Temple, Jane?" So anyway, they got my number.
Brad Axelrod gave away a free drink. What has changed in this world?
But anyway, the pharmaceutical people turned out were kind of crazy because they play the music and the wives got on the husband's shoulders and then they're all dancing and they said, you Jane, you get up on our shoulders. I'm there. I don't want I know I'm going to sit here and drink but I did because, a people pleaser. And then the Go-Go girls left for their break. And the guy said, hey, Jane, you go in the go-go cage. Look at me, Kevin. No go. I don't dance. No go-go cage. And they put me in the go-go cage. And I thought, well, I got to deliver something.
They put me in the go-go cage. We've all heard that before.
Yeah, I know. It's not something you're ever going to hear again. But
I was a stripper because I was just working my way through college. That's my.
But I wanted to tell a Carl Yard story because I'm not sure if it was you, Carl.
One of them black people.
I was just going to say, don't go down this road.
Okay, never mind. Maybe I shouldn't. But I think
it wasn't you, Carl.
You can never say the black joke to Carl because he always says it first.
Yes.
But
well, shall I tell you the story or not?
Go ahead.
I'm dying to know if it was you. And for years I said it was, but I stand corrected. Okay. So Last Comic Standing open auditions season 5 or something. I think it was 2007. Would you have been down to New York?
Was that the one? What's his name?
Alonzo Bowden, Ant, and Kathleen Madigan with a.
How are they to judge?
Jane.
How are they to
Jane.
Judge?
It might be one of those people behind Carl. Behind him. Look at that photo behind him in the backdrop. Is it one of them?
Let me just get out of this joke quickly before
you've already buried yourself with
I'm dying to slow down.
I was there with Rich Voss was on.
Yes, I swear to God it was you. Okay, so we're all down. A number of us got called. I slept overnight in my car to get the audition. Yeah. I got lucky enough to get called back. I don't know how many of us there were, maybe 30. 20, 30.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, Jane.
You sound like my Irish grandmother, Bridget. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, Jane.
Is it 30 or 20? Right?
But
does this story involve some kind of crime?
yes, that's the story. It is you. I knew it was you. Okay. So let me just, you want to tell the story or shall I
have no idea what
somebody tell us.
Okay. But you're just saying
Carl was kidding.
Oh dear. Oh,
I was kidding. You thought it was serious.
What is wrong with Greenwich? What is wrong
It was
with
you.
Greenwich?
Call the staff,
I'm
Jane.
really
They'll get you out of it.
this now. I'm going to try to just wrap it up. Okay.
Now you know why I didn't want to get out and see the Mercedes.
Yeah.
As a people,
There's no Mercedes in Greenwich.
Oh dear. Okay. So anyway, we're all downstairs in what's now the Vintage Lounge of Gotham. And we're all talking to each other. And one of the producers said, even if you pass tonight to go to the semifinals, you have to pass the legal team. And, we have to know that you haven't committed any crimes. And someone said, well, what do you mean crimes? Okay, I know. I shouldn't keep going, but I'm going to. Okay.
Please. We're having too much fun.
Okay. I like to say I'm from Brockton, but I'm not going to hurt you. Okay, but anyway, that's my pre-grant. I'm going to do, never mind. Okay, let's go back to Carl. Okay, so anyway.
You walked Brian.
So,
The crowd is leaving. Oh my God.
He's swimming to the mainland.
Thank you for coming back, Brian. I know.
I was afraid he was going to hang himself. That was terrible.
I was going to go Murphy
Like something out of Airplane.
I owe you a drink, Brian. I'm sorry to bore you with that.
No, please.
But listen.
Edge of my seat.
So then they said that the legal team has to approve you before you go to the next round. And someone said, well, for what? And they said, well, if you commit any crimes. And someone else said, well, what do you mean crimes? And they said, well, like misdemeanors or felonies. And I swear it was you, Carl, who said,
I'm recalling none of this.
No felonies? I'm out of here. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. Okay, it didn't play as well the second time.
Oh, wait, if it was funny, it might not have been Carl. So,
But anyway, whoever said that,
yeah, that wasn't me.
It wasn't you?
No.
Oh, it would have been better if it was you, but it wasn't.
Just it was you.
Now it's worse. Oh, God. Okay, I'm going to sit back now. Brian Glowacki, take my turn.
Yeah, so Brian, Brian, wake up, my man.
Oh, that's all back.
How is the island? We know you threw up the barbed wire. You had the moat going there for a while on Nantucket. You had the artillery trained on anyone trying to make their way out to the island. Yeah, apparently it has worked, kind of like down here in the Keys.
Yeah.
How is it though? How is it?
It's great for now. So check in 14 days after Memorial Day weekend. I think people are going to show up with the coolers and the Bud Light and everything and just be like, what happened? You're not open? What happened here? So we'll see after this weekend, but it's good for now. But
only
the thing
14 cases, right?
Yeah, but those people suck anyway. No, I'm totally joking. I don't know who they are. They won't tell us. I said before, that's the only time anybody ever kept a secret on Nantucket. Like, who has it? You're like, I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know why they wouldn't tell us, and I don't know why, if you have it, you wouldn't tell people so that you can then find out who you had contact with. It makes no sense to me.
I know. I would be telling everybody just so I would get some pity love,
Well, and then when you're cured of it, you're like, you're a superhero, right? You're like, you know what I mean? You're invincible.
That's what I think. Once you have it, you're like, I can go free now.
Not you're dancing by yourself naked at the Rose and Crown. What's up?
Again.
Yeah.
I did that when I had the chicken pox and they didn't like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I get the staying 6 feet apart thing, we have to, but I think some people are a bit over the top. Like, I got people backing up against the wall when I walk by. You know what I mean? Like,
nothing to do with the virus.
That's Jane.
Jane, was that you?
Hey, Carl, what is that behind you? That poster? Is that Tupac?
Looks nice.
That is a Zoom show that I just started doing on Saturdays on Facebook Live, and it's called For Black Comics.
That's a great idea. Do you have to be black?
Where'd you get the name? Who books that?
That's a good
Carl,
looking for work, Carl.
Is it sponsored by Mercedes?
It's just a show that I did live when I was featuring comics. It didn't matter who they were, male, female, black, white, whatever. And just so happened one Saturday that I had, the 3 friends I picked to be on the show were Black. And so I said, what do you think this show is called for down south? And we said, no matter what, this show they're going to say it's 4 Black guys. You know what I mean? So and people responded to it. So we called it 4 Black Comics. We only did like 3 shows live, but people want us to keep doing it. So
Carl, is that Desi there in the?
Yeah, that's Desi. Yeah, and Gerald. You see Gerald?
Where's Desi from?
Desi lives in
Caribbean. No, he's Caribbean, right?
Trinidad,
right. So I was going to tell everybody, when I first started doing the winter programs out on Nantucket, bringing comics out, I wanted to bring out, a lot of the people who work for Cape Air, a lot of the people who work at the beachside, both sponsors at the comedy festival. They're from the Caribbean. And so I said, there are so many Caribbean people living on Nantucket year round now that I said, I want to bring out some comics from the Caribbean. And I think, Carl, there was like one woman from Jamaica and she heckled you, right? That was it. That's your show. We had like a sold out show, but there was only one person from the Caribbean and it was Jamaica. And it was there. We had a great time that weekend.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, that was fun.
We, I think 2 months later, I did a show that was going to be all Hispanic comedians because there's a large Hispanic community out in Nantucket. And I thought, all right, I'll bring out some comics. And the one comic, he's passed away, but he would do. I had Roberto Vanderpool, who's open for Prince, and a couple of other comedians.
Oh yeah.
And one comic does stand up in Spanish and in English. Wow. And I brought them out, and it's sold out. It's at the Dreamland. And I go up on stage, and all I see is just a sea of white faces. And I go, is there? It's Hispanic night, right? So I'm like, I'm just going to introduce the first comic, and then I'm not going up on stage at all. So I'm like, hey, welcome to Hispanic night. It's like everybody's looking at me like we're just here for comedy. And I go, well, is anybody Hispanic? And there's like 30 seconds of silence. Finally, like Virna Gonzalez is like, yes, I am.
They're like, my bank account's in Panama. Does that count?
And then Raul, who used to work at the one of the restaurants, he's like, Kev, I guess I'm Hispanic. I go, do either of you guys speak Spanish? They're like, no. So it was funny. So I struck out with the whole, segmented, comedy's comedy and it's funny. So
they never did theme night after that for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. Over 2. But Desi and I and Carl had a great weekend.
Yeah.
It was fun.
The annual running of the white people.
Right.
Yeah. So, Justin, home with the kids, bouncing off the walls, you or them or both?
I got to be honest, and I'm not even lying, but if I knew this whole COVID thing was going to happen, I wouldn't have had kids. I told them that. I mean, seriously, I would not have had them. I mean, I love them now that they're here, but knowing I was on the fence anyway about doing it. You know what I mean? And now it's like, I don't want them to have kids because who knows where they're going to be. They're going to be off the tracks because I'm homeschooling them. So who knows where they'll be. So then what if I have to homeschool their kids as a grandparent? Like, that's my nightmare now when this comes around again. Like, if this ever happens again. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Oh, it's brutal.
How do you homeschool kids when you didn't graduate high school? How does that work?
Kevin, you're trying to be funny, but you know what? I have a community college degree and associate's degree. So my education, I am 4th grade. I know half of it. I'm Googling everything. 4th grade. Oh, I'm asking the teacher. I'd ask the teacher if A was a word the other day because he does fluent. I go, is A a word? She goes, yeah, that's a word. I'm like, I didn't know. Did you know A was a word?
Yes, it's also a vowel. Hey,
stay a chapter ahead. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Justin, Bob, you might not know this. The comics might know this, but Justin was a cop in Maine.
Yeah, I know that.
Oh, wow.
He pulled Carl over in a Mercedes.
Oh, I thought it was Carl. It wasn't Carl.
It was the other black guy.
Yeah.
The one that told that story the one in the story Jane told, that black guy.
Yeah.
That's why he couldn't do the show.
And he was speeding because he wanted to get to see her in the cage.
Yeah. I got to tell you, when the first Tonight Show I did, Jay Leno, it came from a true story. Carl, did you ever see the joke I had done where I was down in New York City and I got off stage, and this came from a real thing? A black comedian, I don't know who it was. I'm not going to try to guess like Jane, but I'll tell you. But you know, it was just, but we were just kind of like, you know, he was like, hey, man, so you really a cop? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know, you ever, you know, mistreat a black guy right up there, you know, busted black guys. I'm like, I never saw a black guy while I was up there working. They say, I'll be honest, if I did, I would have pulled him over and give him directions because he's probably lost.
Exactly.
But yeah, they're really what it was. I mean, yeah, it wasn't very diverse up there, but it's, you know, my town now has a black officer. It's first black police officer. And it's just, he was telling me the other day a story. Imagine this. He gets called into the chief's office because a woman brings in surveillance footage of a black guy with a gun walking. He was at an alarm call. It was him in uniform. They're like, do you see the patch right there that says police officer? And he's just laughing, telling the story. Great guy. I've gotten to be good friends with him here, but it's just, you know, it's you know, it's interesting.
Did he use excessive force on himself? Is that how that worked?
But did you see the video where the cop went into a federal building and the security guard pulled a gun on him? Did you guys see that one?
No. Yeah, that was a couple months ago, right?
No.
Yeah, he went into a federal building to do some kind of business, and the security guard pulled a gun, and he's in full uniform with his gun and everything.
Oh boy.
I think he was a sergeant too, and the security guy pulled a gun on him and walked him to the elevator.
Oh yeah, that was a confrontation. Yeah, he got reprimanded though. I think.
No sense of humor at the Federal Protective Service.
Yeah.
No, it's a lot.
It was a tough business.
Yeah. Plus, he double parked his Mercedes outside too. So, Kevin, the spot of business to cover tonight. We still got some time here, but Nantucket Comedy Festival. We all know what we're going through nationally. Looking ahead towards the summer, I know the NCF had put out a note this week, just thanking all their friends, their patrons, their supporters who've been there, and folks such as everyone here tonight have supported through the years. What's the immediate future looking like, and what can you tell us?
Well, the festival as we know it will not occur this summer for sure, because it's just, you know, I was telling guys, Jackie Flint calls me every week and he's like, hey, do you think I can fly in July? Do you think it'll be okay to fly in July? I go, dude, I have no idea. The greatest scientists in the country have no idea. Why are you asking me? You're an idiot. I'm an idiot. There's no good coming from this conversation. So, you know, I was sort of holding off, and I tell you, I had talked to Mistel Brabby from the film festival months ago, and I thought, well, it's whatever this is going to blow over, right? Or it's going to run its course. But this is a new world for all of us, I think. So none of us know what's going on. So I think the festival in July, the 16th there of July, is not going to happen because people don't want to be inside. So talking to Joe Hale over at the Dreamland, he's trying to do a pop-up drive-in movie theater idea. I thought maybe I could do stand-up comedy outside one night. And I said this last week. Don Gavin was like, well, you know, how do you know if they're laughing? I go, well, they'll beep the horns. He goes, I get it. All right. I get it. So we might try to do something one night, but the festival, you know, will not be in its form. We'll be back next year, hopefully, as will the rest of the country. So, but you know, it's
but still doing the work of Stand Up and Learn, though. In the meantime, right?
Stand Up and Learn is actually taken on a different sort of a different vibe here, because I can't go out to the islands. I used to bring these guys out. Carl helped me with the kids, and Desi helped me with the kids. Justin helped me with the kids. Brian is really instrumental in helping with the kids. Jane, you've been there as well. Every comic who comes out helps with the kids. It's really awesome, and they're really, you know, that's why they come out. But I can't go out there, and they can't go out there. So what we started to do, I've done some Zoom sessions with some students. And that's open. Brian and I you're more than welcome to reach out to us through the festival. And so I've taught a couple of kids how to do stand-up comedy, some of our regulars and some new kids. And some of those little segments are going to be popping up over the next couple of weeks. You're going to see, I call them the Kids Corona Chronicles. So,
So Brian, though, when Kevin teaches the kids to start working blue, and they're not even in high school, I mean, what the heck?
I always turn into like I'm like, oh, I wouldn't say that. I feel like I'm the most restrictive one, because I'm like, oh, I wouldn't go there. But you know, when you're spitballing ideas or just like coming up with things, even things come out of our mouths that I'm like, that's probably wait a couple of years for that joke. But it's very few and far between. Some of the kids now are doing the open mic that's on Nantucket. You see some of the Stand-Up and Learn kids without our involvement whatsoever showing up on there and doing their bits. And I'm like, oh my God, it worked. Like some of these kids got it. It worked. It's so cool to see it because they're not being prompted by Kevin or me or anything. They're just continuing to do it because they love it, that's gratifying to me, you know.
To take chances.
And you know, don't all of us wish we had that when we were in junior high school, when you're lacking confidence and the ability to speak to adults and other kids. And Max Margolis, it was funny. We worked with Max. Brian's worked really hard with Max as well, and he put together Max had a good 10 minutes of comedy, and it was funny. And he went away and it was like he was sort of like, you know, a real natural at it. And then he went away to his summer camp, and he performed his 10 minutes, and it brought the house down. Like he was a god walking through the camp, and he's like, he came back with like a swagger, and I'm like, all right, easy, dude. But it was wonderful to see.
That could ruin him though.
They could.
He's going to be just fine.
Yeah, but Justin sees him as a threat now, I guess.
Yeah,
we're all getting old. You know, I got to say, you know, Jane, you said you're doing comedy over 50. Was it funny over 50? Yep. It's so funny because I'll be 50 this year, but I could remember our friend Kevin, Al, and Lenny, and a couple others did 4 Sides of 40. And I could remember when they did the 4 Sides of 40 tour. I remember thinking, geez, 40, that's old. Now I'm like, man, I'd love to be almost 40 again.
I know.
Careful.
I just figured for this podcast, there's so many great people I know, you know, like Ross Bennett and they're just tons of people. My first interview was actually with Brian Kiley, who's the head monologue.
Oh, I love Brian.
Brian's a guest next week on this show.
Perfect.
He's the head writer for tonight's show. Yeah.
He is just what a prince. And he loves to talk comedy process. So we ended up making it a 2-parter. And my second one was Julia Scotti, the transgender comedian. And then I did Carol Montgomery. I didn't even know if Brian was over 50. I just thought, I was in LA visiting my son. I thought, I ask. He's probably busy at work, you know, he calls a full-time job.
Yeah.
He said, no, we're on hiatus this week. Come on over. So
no, it's great.
The new thing for me, though, is I've always done it in a podcast studio. I got to figure out how to do it remote. I guess I'll do a Zoom with people or something.
On your computer. It's all, talk to Glowacki. You're pumping out more material. You and Justin pump out a ton.
I'm just trying to keep up with Justin. Everywhere I go in New England, like, oh, man, you met Justin McKinney? I'm like, yeah, I've heard of him.
How's your baby, Brian?
I don't know. I put out a saucer of milk. I think she's just in there taking care of herself.
These are days without water, Brian.
Yeah, they're fine. I don't know. The older kids are trying to kill me. The young one, you know, like, just fell. I just saw her fall, you know, tip over and hit her head yesterday. I was like, ooh, that was hard. I saw the SAT scores leaving her body. My wife was like, it's her 3rd kid. She's like, she's fine. I'm like, no, she's not going to make it.
No. I think kids should wear hockey helmets for like from 2 to 5, maybe.
Absolutely. And I have to teach, like Justin was talking about teaching them. And I have a 13-year-old stepdaughter, and she's mad at me all the time anyways. And I'm trying to help her with math. And I go, I'm sorry, this is not the same math that I failed in high school. I'm trying. And she's going, no, you're supposed to find X. And I go, I might go find my X. I don't think she has kids yet. And it doesn't go over as good as you
Very good.
It's awful.
Do you have any names for you, Brian? Our kids used to call us Mad Dog and Cranky Paints.
Really?
Which were you?
I think I was Mad Dog. I'm not sure. I could have been either, but
my stepkids call me B-Glow.
Oh, I like that.
They really?
That's happening.
Like, what's up, B-Glow? I'm like, hey.
I tell you, when I raised my daughter in New York City and taken her to the, you know, preschool and then, you know, primary school, they tell the kids, they call their parents by their first names, you know, hey, Sharon, did you bring my lunch? I'm like, who are you talking to? Like, it's my mom. Your mom's Sharon, really? That's your mom. I'm like, the first name. It's just, and they call their teachers by their first name. That would have gone over well at the Catholic school with the nuns. That
yeah,
really
no.
Yeah. As long as you say sister first, you can say like Sister Mary Ann, then you can call them by their first name, right? In Catholic school.
I don't know if I brought this up last week. Did you see the meme out there on the internet talking about 6 feet? How do you determine social distancing? They've got that prototypical nun in the habit from hell with the big old ruler. Sister Mary, she'll get you 6 feet apart with a ruler.
Think of those nuns, though, man. Those nuns used to have up to 40, 45 kids in a single room. 40 kids in a room teaching. Brian, you got to wear a Depends diaper from now on. This is ridiculous.
It's like that NASA astronaut going to see her boyfriend. Come on.
Third time he's gotten up. It's terrible.
My dog was barking. I didn't want to ruin the Zoom.
And we didn't hear him. So
I muted it. I'm sorry. I'm distracted easily.
So Nantucket should be very interesting this summer, Bob.
Absolutely, it will. And listen, thanks to all for being here. Carl, I don't know of anybody who's been literally up on 2 wheels and still made it to our big Hollywood production like this. We are indebted to you. I hope they get the bad guy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
Thank you so much for being here. Best of luck, man. And Jane, good to see you. Brian, always a pleasure. Hope maybe if we're out there this summer, I can get a chance to have a drink again.
Absolutely.
Justin, good to see you. Kevin, do it again next week.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Great seeing everybody.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Great
Be
seeing you
safe.
guys. Brian,
Each
Bob,
Thursday evening. We'll see you. Take care,
Carl,
everybody.
talk-
вируса. За да предотвратим разпространението на коронавируса на острова,